Daniel joins me by phone. Daniel, good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
And thanks for holding as long as you did. I appreciate it. Now,
that's no problem.
You're 39 now, right? So 25 years, thereabouts, 25 years ago, around about the age of 13 or 14, you were able to bet.
I was, yeah.
Yeah. And would that have been even 25 years ago? Was that online?
Not online at that point. I was kind of the local bookmaker, in small towns in Ireland. Most places have the local bookmaker, and it was quite normal for people of my age to be in and about at that time,
Even though that would have been against the law?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you recall your first bet and the reasons behind it?
I would have went racing, with the family then at an early age as well. I was probably in Ballinrobe races at maybe 11, 12, whatever, So, and would have played cards with my neighbour down the road playing, 21 pontoon for coppers or for a little bit more, for 50p, for £1,
You found that exciting then?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. It was fun and whatever. And then I suppose, I do recall my first kind of proper bet, I suppose, in a bookmaker, and it was in one of the bigger ones at the time. And that was, I think it was £2 and Lee Sharp to score first on his debut for Leeds in '96. And that won, so that's kind of
you won on that one, yeah. There you go, and you found that exciting, easy money. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Shortly after that, I won an accumulator for about £300 for like a pound bet. So when you do something like that, you think this is amazing. This is just
You were hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your dad died when you were quite young, didn't he?
My father died when I was 14 and he had MS, so all my childhood. So he was kind of, ill my whole childhood. So only in retrospect, obviously I put these things together. At the time, I didn't realise I was escaping from anything or, had emotional distress or anything like that. Just at the time it was like, this is a way to make money and a way to feel grown up and a way to feel an adult,
But looking back at it now, you see it as a different reality, or like a virtual reality that you escaped into.
Oh, no, for sure. It was pure escapism. Like, I had big traumas in my life in terms of emotionally, wasn't able to deal with my father's death or have much support. In those times, it was kind of, someone dies and it was more like you get on with it, It was,
So did you have a phone account then at some stage when you were still in secondary school?
So when I was still in secondary school, I had with the local bookmaker, I would call bets in for the football in the evening and I'd leave them on his answering machine. So that's how I used to bet on the football on those evenings.
And of course, the money that you had, it was being funded by the betting and the gambling, was it? Or was your mum giving you money?
Yeah, you'd have a couple of quid here and there, and then I was one at the beginning, so there was that kind of rollover of funds, so and pretty early, I had my first £100 bet when I was 17 and I was still in secondary school.
And if that wins, then it drives you on even more, I suppose. Or even if you lose, then you're chasing it, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that one lost, if I recall correctly, and that was but I still felt, kind of, it was a false sense of identity of, self-identity, of confidence, being, look at me, I can have £100 on a bet or whatever, So it gave me something in that way of being, mature or an adult in. That's how I saw it at the time,
And nobody knew anything about this. I believe you went from secondary school to college then, is that right?
Well, yeah, I went to college then into Kevin Street in Dublin, and Mum gave me like £6,000, kind of probably, just as a thing after my father dying, and she's thinking, I'm okay, I'm going off to college, starting my life or whatever, So that was to help me, along, and I was in maybe the first couple of days, and then I ended up in the betting shop just around the corner there on Camden Street. That's where I spent pretty much all my time then very quickly.
Did you spend most of the $6,000 at the bookies?
I would have lost that whole 6,000, yes.
In what space of time?
A few months, I'd say.
Up and down, and slowly but surely it just dwindled away.
And you'd be winning some and you'd be losing some, and you'd have good days and you'd have bad days, and it was a real roller coaster of emotions. But like I look at it now, it was a very safe problem in those days. I was winning or losing, so that was the only thing that was important in my life.
But it was the only important thing in your life, because I believe you dropped out of college, and at 18 now you're a problem gambler.
Yeah. I didn't feel, obviously at the time I didn't think I was,
So when you dropped out of college, what did you do then?
So I very briefly worked in a Londis, I think, in Dublin, and I was kind of in and out to the bookmaker next door. But then I went back home to Mayo and just kind of entered a bit of a depression. Then I would say a bit of a definite funk and a definite, like, a lot of time in my room, a lot of isolation, and I suppose a lot of shame and guilt then, obviously, from losing the money, from, not succeeding in college. So I kind of spiraled, I'd say, downwards quite quickly and into a not such a good place.
And did anybody, you were back, did your mum pick up on any of this, I wonder?
Yeah, she knew, I suppose, but she was dealing with her own stuff as well, like, and her own grief. And, so I did get, assessed by a social welfare officer, and I was then put on disability, so they kind of assessed me for depression or whatever, And then, so I thought at the time this was great, now I'm going to get some money and I'm going to be able to gamble, because that's all I wanted to do. So I thought that was a good idea,
And then you moved into phone betting then and apps and stuff like that?
Yeah, I opened all the accounts then when I was 18, I had an account with pretty much every bookmaker that ever existed.
Did you run up debt, or can you run up debt on an app?
I didn't particularly run up debt. I had, I think I had a credit card, and I used to, I don't know what year I got the credit card or whatever, and I was €1,000 limit on that. And what I used to do is I'd get the cash advance across, and it used to cost me an awful lot in interest. And I'd constantly just kind of be cycling that and push across so for a €1,000 limit, I don't know how much in interest I paid in that over the years.
So you didn't get into debt with money lenders, even people chasing you for it or borrowing it from friends?
No, I thought there were some lines. So the reason I didn't think I was a problem gambler to the same extent was because I had certain rules or certain lines I didn't cross, but as they say, that was all a matter of, yes, I haven't done that yet,
I know.
If you stay there long enough, you're going to do it.
Yeah, because you tried to go back to college, didn't you? And tried to get help.
So I had a period where I thought I always thought I was going to be a professional gambler. I thought I was going to make my living from gambling. That was my delusion and my dream.
Did you know people that had done that or something?
Well, obviously there's JP McManus and people like that. You have, it's a very small amount of people, but you have this it's an ego thing. You
thought you had the magic touch, is it?
Yeah, well, you think part of it is you think you're smarter than other people. You think you can do things other people can't do. That was the reality for me at that time.
Yeah. But even though you did seek help, went back to college, tried to stop, you found yourself relapsing.
Yeah, so I went to college in 2010 and I went to the doctor first. I went on antidepressants. I, thought I was doing the right things at that stage. Went to college, passed my first year. And then it was, the temptation of Cheltenham came round and I just, I didn't have supports in place or anything real, to help me, I was just kind of do it on my own, it was just like, well, make a decision not to gamble, and that's what people looking in from the outside can think, it's just as simple as that. You stop gambling and that's it,
And even with the best will in the world, you were saying that if you did stop for a period of time, you would find that you would get an email from a betting app or a bookmaker offering you a free bet. Yeah,
so I had occasions when I would try like that during those periods, where I'd be in college and trying to do whatever the right thing. But one bookmaker that I had a very long relationship with and would have lost a huge amount of money with, would send me an email offering a free bet of €100. That could be maybe 3 months after not having a bet,
Because they would have picked up that you were inactive for a period of time, is it?
Yes. They definitely have something that told them that I wasn't betting,
So they would send it, not even knowing if you were trying to stop, not even knowing if you had a problem you were trying to conquer, and they would send you a free bet.
Yeah, just an email came through saying, oh, this is a special bonus for you, and they'd frame it in terms of this is especially for you, And then, of course, I was at that point, I was not strong in my recovery or not any sport, as I said, and I was just like, oh, €100, I could put this on whatever I'll make that and then I'll stop again. You know, I won't actually start gambling again. I'll just use this free bet and away I go. You know.
But you were off onto the destructive path again then.
Yeah, as soon as you put that bet on, then it just all comes.
Why do they do that? I mean, they have a responsibility, don't they? That's so awful to do a thing like that.
Yeah, I can only speak from my personal experience and my own opinion on that. I would say they know, like I've had, as I said, accounts with everyone, and I would have won with certain bookmakers, but one particular bookmaker I pretty much did all my losing with, and this was the one that sent the email. So,
and you know, if you were winning lots of money,
yeah.
Because I've heard of people who've been winning, and they had their accounts closed because of that.
Yeah. So I had that experience. Another bookmaker, I wouldn't have bet with that much. Who I may only have bet if they were the best odds on something or whatever, you know. And I would have had a winning account with them. So I had been limited, so I'd go to put in an amount of whatever, and they'd offer me something, you know, crazy, like you can have 10 cents on that, or you can have €1 on that when you'd be looking to have 1,000 or something, you know.
That's why they say the bookie always wins. Those kind of stories.
Yeah. And so you can't win in that way. They won't allow winning, you know.
But now, of course, you're on the right path and have been for a few years. How did you manage it?
Well,
was there a day of reckoning? Was there a bet? Was there something?
Not really. Just I tried so many times to give up, you know, so many times, so many moments of desperation and, you know, just real quiet, private suffering like Tommy was speaking about. It's a very, you know, quiet thing you can keep to yourself and no one really sees, you know, what you're going through. Of course, your close family can, but apart from that, you can kind of hide it very much. So it was just time after time of that suffering. And I just got to a point where I was like, just so tired, honestly exhausted, and just couldn't do it anymore, you know. And I did go to GA, you know. I went to GA a first time in 2011, I think it was, and I wasn't ready, you know. And I went again then in 2017 when I made that decision myself, where I'm just like, I'm beat here.
You just surrendered to it, is it?
Yeah.
Was there because is there an amount of embarrassment or shame going to a meeting for the first time, kind of apprehension?
Yeah, I'd say definitely in the first time I went in 2011, you know, and it just that feeling of, you know, well, you don't know what to expect or you don't know what's going on or, you know, it's just, there's so much shame and guilt, obviously, from secrecy and lying and from myself, you know, not supporting myself financially, not being able to support myself financially is a huge kind of barrier to your self-esteem, you know.
I'm a failure kind of. Did that lead to anything like suicidal tendencies, or was there any substance
misuse? Yeah, no, I would have many the time thought I'd be better off dead, you know, for sure. Thankfully, I never got as far as to make any plans or anything, but certainly it was a form of coping, you know, where I'd fantasize about my life being over.
I know what you're saying, yeah. What, did you have relationships, or were there any relationships?
No relationships at all in that period. I just avoided everything. I was hiding from life, essentially, you know, and I had huge fear and anxiety over that because, I think looking back in retrospect now, I had arrested development, you know, at 14. I didn't hit the milestones, you know, so I just had huge crippling social anxiety and fear over anything like that.
I know what you're saying. They also say sometimes that somebody, not always, it doesn't necessarily follow, but that a gambling addiction could be accompanied with another addiction, like maybe a substance misuse or something like that.
Yeah, cross addiction is very common, but for me, it was only gambling, and that was, you know, I thought you find the addiction that worked for you, essentially, you know, that, and I'll say this, you know, that gambling for a period kept me alive, you know, in terms of, you know, it just was something to live for, you know, and then it became something to get away from, that was just too much, you know. So I feel like in terms of there's a level of suffering in people, certainly myself, I was experiencing a level of suffering that gambling was kind of, you know, it was my coping mechanism to deal with.
Yeah, you can see that now, of course, but you can't see that through the eyes of a child.
No, not at the time, of course. So that's in talking about Tommy and the legislation. There's certain people are vulnerable to addiction, and I would say the more highly sensitive people that experience some kind of childhood trauma, and they're the ones that need some form of protection from kind of finding this addiction, you know.
But what about advertising and sponsorship and the marketing of it, you know?
Yeah,
None of that
let a
helps.
lot go over my head now in recovery. I still have kind of cloth ears a lot of the time.
Yeah. That works for you.
And I do, but it's so prevalent. Like, and when I started gambling, it used to not be allowed, as far as I know. It was illegal to advertise on Irish TV, apart from the lotto. You'd never see an advert for a bookmaker in my...
Yeah, but the ads pop up all the time on my phone. Little casinos and spinning wheels and roulette and all sorts of nonsense like that. I mean, I'm assuming
now
that's
it's
happening
everywhere. And even not to criticise yourselves, but even all the sports bulletins and all the radios now have the tagline of a bookmaker.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. And I know that gamblers, it's not recommended that they ever tot up their losses, but you have done, have you?
Well, I haven't, there's part of the recovery, you make the financial inventory and you kind of try and put a figure on it. But I haven't totally, for me, we spoke about not getting in the huge debt and things like that. For me, my mother took the financial brunt, and I couldn't calculate how much, she's bailed me out down through the years. Without my mother, there would have been times I would have been homeless, because
I know.
I would have gambled everything I had.
It's just that I read a note where you said, I reckon I gambled a couple of million throughout the years. I thought that was a phenomenal statement.
Well, it's just if you're talking about, cycling money, there was one year, when I thought I was a professional gambler, there was one year when I did my accounts, so to speak, when I was deluded in that way, and my turnover that year would have been 3 million. That would be in one calendar year where I would have bet 3 million,
But you weren't 3 million up.
No, I was about 150,000 up. So you'd be cycling the same money, but in terms of the amounts you gamble, it can be pretty huge.
But it's very easy for the whole deck of cards to fall down around you as it did.
Yeah, no, it was completely illusory and completely a delusion, but it seems real at the time is the thing, Time is the thing, Time is the thing.